The Nigeria Football Federation, NFF, has admitted that they are currently cash-strapped and are yet to pay some of the outstanding wages of Super Eagles coach Jose Peseiro, Super Falcons coach Randy Waldrum, and other national team coaches. This was made known by the Director of Communications, Ademola Olajire, in an interview. He noted that the football house is currently cash-strapped and cannot pay its workers. Aside from the coaches, players of the different national teams are also owed camp allowances and match bonuses. I've said this before. One of the reasons why we will probably never be able to hire the very best staff, the very best manager, and for years, administrators used to tease the idea of hiring Jose Mourinho. That was all bluster. The fact that things like this could happen, that coaches can go months without getting paid, contributes to a bad image. If an employee, a prospective employee, was going for a job interview and they find out that the job may not pay as much as they want it to pay, they could still accept a lower pay. But if they find out the pay is not regular, or there are going to be moments in time when the pay can get held up for months, it means their bills aren't being serviced by the wages they expect to service those bills. And that, aside from the bad image, it leaves our options short. We are short of options when we go into the market to replace someone like Austin Akwuwgbu, someone like the current coach, Jose Peseiro. Whatever might happen now, whether he chooses to walk away or we choose to fire him because we think his work isn't up to standard, we will be held hostage because we probably won't get anyone better than him. And it might be a consideration that we use for keeping him on the payroll, because he, unlike other people, is probably more willing to accept moments of no financial compensation for his work. Gbenga, what do you make of this story? We're owing Jose Peseiro. Many people are not even happy with the work he's doing, but we're owing him. Can we even be upset that he's not doing, the team isn't performing to the standards we hope for?
So first of all, yeah, we can own it with our full chest that we owe people, right? Not just him. Let's not forget we are still owing some portion of Genetro, yeah. Genetro, we are still owing some portion of Genetro before he left. He actually stood up to court at some point, but I think they settled that out of court. They settled it, gentleman's settlement, like they used to say. Akwuwgbu is our very own. They pay him even right as the technical advisor in the technical department. When he was told he was going to be relieved of his job, he went back to being the technical director in the technical department. So he knows the terrain very well. Now here comes another foreign coach, Jose Peseiro, who is also complaining that he was not being paid. The last time I went for a presser, that was when Nigeria hosted Guinea-Bissau in Abuja. We had a post-match conference, and there was a direct question at Jose Peseiro. What would you say about the Nigerian Football Federation that has not yet paid you for the last 10 months? I was surprised when that question was put because I didn't even know it was up to 10 months. Guess his answer? His answer was, I will discuss that with my wife. It's not for public consumption. So that means you're telling us that we shouldn't be concerned if you are being owed or not. That means when you come to the public tomorrow and say, this is the reason why you are not performing, nobody will give you a listening ear. So I think it's beyond the federation. There should be a structure, right? There should be a constitution from the ministry that curbs owings of salary. I mean, it's not something that we should be talking about in a public domain. It's a shame. It's a sham, right? You're supposed to be the giant of Africa. This news don't come out from South Africa. This news don't come from Ghana. This news don't come from Tunisia. It doesn't even come from Senegal, that are also a West African country. How much more Nigeria? We have enough resources not to be owing salaries, right? So I think that alone shouldn't be the case. For the
Well,
federation, I think we need to get it right from structure. It's not just about one person.
Well, unlike most institutions within governments, sure, this NFF is up for funding from the government itself, but unlike most institutions within the government, it is capable of generating its own revenue by participating in competitions and potentially by going all the way and winning those competitions. That itself is supposed to cover its expenditures. How is it that if it's this bad where we're owing former coaches, we're owing current coaches, we're owing camp
Future
allowances to
coaches.
we're owing certain allowances to certain players, and what does it say about the coffers of the NFF itself to manage other areas of its responsibilities? If this is just personnel, or this is just money owed to personnel, what about money necessary to maintain other institutions within the NFF itself?
I don't know if you remember the story that came out of the MKO Abiola Stadium when the Super Eagles were training before the Guinea-Bissau game, where was it around 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the light went off in the stadium. And for some reason, when the janitor was asked, he started making excuses of there was no fuel, logistics, this and that. While the Super Eagles of Nigeria were training in the national stadium, the generating set was intentionally switched off to manage fuel. How does that make sense? On Wednesday, when these boys were transported from the stadium to the hotel where they would stay, it was reported that these guys were packaged in a korokwe. Now, korokwe in Nigerian vernacular means these short space buses. It's not as long as the normal 32
Yeah.
seater. It's as small as 10 or 12 seater. So that is what the Super Eagles were caged in, two or three, and they were transported to their hotel. So certain departments are faulty. And it is because nobody is held accountable. There's nobody that is saying who is responsible for this, heads will roll. Nothing of such. So everybody is lackadaisical. Once the new sporting minister comes in, these are the aspects he needs to correct.
Okay.
Every head of department needs to be responsible and accountable for any form of lapses. That's a good way to start.
I want to tell you a story, Gbenga. When I was in NYSC, I was
Yeah.
posted to a ministry. I'm not going to mention the ministry, but suffice to say, it's an important one. And for months, the ministry did
Yeah.
not have light. They were using generator from morning till night. And at
Wow.
one point, I asked the secretary in the office I was working at, why don't we ever have light? This is a government parastatal. How do we not have lights? No more light. And the woman said, we are owing NEPA.
What?
It was at that point
That's funny.
it was at that point I realized that even ministries aren't exempted from paying bills. There's no exemptions offered to them that, okay, we're going to give you light because we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. We all work for the government. I provide the light for everybody as the parastatal of the government, so you can get some light because you are doing government work. So I suppose if we're talking about transportation being bad, we're talking about hotel accommodations not being up to scratch, and we're also talking about camp allowances being owed, salaries and wages being owed. Is this the time when the NFF needs to stop being a federation and start being an association completely at its own, under its own control, so that perhaps more can be done but with the resources from within, and more responsibility as to the running of it can be entirely in the hands of those who purport to lead it?
First of all, let's not act like the NFF haven't come out to say they are independent. Let's not act like these people haven't come out to say they can stand on their own. They've done it severally with their full chest.
But that's all
Now the
bluster.
problem is, the problem now is the personnel that find themselves at the helm of affairs know little or nothing in terms of administration. Let's take a look at political scene. When Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State, do you know one of the ways he used to curb ghost workers then, as at 2000, the early 2000s? He established a unified paying system. He had to go into contract with a third-party software organization that had to deal with payroll. So it wasn't an individual that was handling it. It wasn't a department. It wasn't HR or what. It was a particular firm. So there was somebody to hold accountable. This is what you will check. This is the timing. This is the weeks, and this is the member that is to be paid, and this is the amount that will go. It is well documented in the Excel sheet. It is uploaded and it is dispensed, right? I don't see how that is hard to be done. So when it comes to our association, when it comes to federation, it is not the initiative that is the problem. It is not the idea that is the problem. The execution has always been the problem. We can sit here and say, let's turn it from the federation to the association. Let's make it independent. They've come out to say they are independent. But the problem is they found it difficult to execute what they have in their minds. That's just the problem. So it is not rocket science. Look for a way to unify it. Look for a way to get all these heads of department, be it the head of football, head of basketball, head of athletics, head of whatever, head of management, head of infrastructure, head of salary payroll. Somebody needs to be accountable for something. And when something goes wrong, we know who to hold at the jugular.
Well,
It's as simple as that.